Before we get to our show, here is a podcast we think you're going to love.
Hey, this is Liz.
And this is Heather.
And we are Nerdy Bitches Podcast.
A show where two geeky ladies podcast their way through pop culture.
From movies and TV to our regular book club and everything in between, we bring you our favorite fandoms with a feminine eye.
We're talking Star Wars, Star Trek, Harry Potter, DC, Marvel, comic books, and anime.
And don't forget sci-fi, fantasy, action movies, video games, D&D, board games, and so much more.
Be sure to check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, or wherever you find awesome podcasts.
You can also find us hanging out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and at nerdybitches.com.
Talk to you soon.
Hello and welcome, 5 listeners. You're listening to an Unsolved Mysteries rewatch podcast.
Called Perhaps It's You.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I'm Samantha.
Why did I say that? My name is Liz.
You know what? Intros they're hard, okay?
I'm sure other people have them down, but it's always just a little awkward. I don't know.
Look,
but
we're
glad
record.
you're here.
We're talking into a microphone. It's all the intro we need. As long as we say the name of our podcast, which we often don't.
Which sometimes, in the beginning, that didn't always happen. But we've learned. We've grown. You've stayed with us somehow. Bless you. Satan bless you. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're well. We're here to talk about Unsolved Mysteries. Do we have any updates to start off with?
I was trying to think if we did, and I don't know that I do.
Are you going to talk about the Fyre Fest thing?
I really want to talk. That's all I want to talk about. I could talk about it forever.
Let's just talk about it.
So I've watched both now.
Okay.
I've watched the Hulu and the Netflix. Which one do you like more? Do you have a preference?
I like the Netflix one more, but I do sort of feel like you need to watch both. Okay, in case people don't know what we're talking about. Some point a while ago when we were talking about scams, I mentioned the Fyre Fest, though I probably called it the Fry Fest because that's a mistake that I make a lot because I think I thought it was associated with like Fry Electronics.
Huh.
And also just why call your festival Fire with a Y? That's dumb.
Yeah,
but anyway.
Real dumb.
Anyway. We had brought this up as an example of scams, and I said at the time, like, I'm not sure how much of this was a con versus people getting in over their head. So I was very excited to watch. In 1 week, we got 2 fucking documentaries. One on Netflix.
Another blessing.
One on Hulu. I think the Netflix one was like announced first or whatever. And then Hulu was like, we're going to put one together too. Fuck you. So I watched the Netflix one first.
Same.
I think I prefer it, but I also tend to have unanswered questions.
Yeah, this is my take on it is that the Hulu one, I hesitate to say that it's more accurate because I don't know that anything in the Netflix one was not true. I just think that the Netflix one is produced in such a way that makes it a little bit misleading and also downplays some of the responsibility of some people who appear in the documentary, and they also leave a lot of things out. So I thought I got more information and more credible information from the Hulu one, but it's not quite as, I don't want to say well produced because it is well produced, but the Netflix one has more footage.
They have more behind the scenes people interviews.
Mm-hmm. There's funny moments in both of them, but the Netflix one is like supreme.
I don't want to, in case you haven't watched it, I don't want to ruin this like mind-blowing moment, but there's this dude in there that, goddamn, he's the only person that comes off well. I just want to be his friend.
Well, he seems like a good friend.
He's loyal to the end, and he would do anything for you.
He would.
And I honestly really admire him. So
there was just so many things that the Netflix one left out.
I think it is when I watched the Hulu one.
Well, because the Netflix one was produced by the Fuck Jerry guys and people who were former employees of Fyre, so they make themselves look pretty good.
Yeah,
and I don't know that that's entirely accurate, but I don't know that anything they said was wrong.
It just.
Or incorrect or a lie.
I think after seeing, all documentaries have a bias, and you can argue to what extent filmmakers should try to remove that bias. But I think after watching the Hulu one, you sort of can look back on the Netflix one and see that bias in a way that they probably don't appreciate, because definitely they're trying to make certain players look better,
less
or
complicit,
just leaving some information out, or just showing them in a slightly better light than maybe they deserve.
Right. A lot of people are pleased to see that Billy McFarlane, the mastermind of this con, is interviewed in the Hulu one. I didn't think I got that much out of his interviews because he doesn't say much.
He's just like, oh, I can't comment on that.
He comes off as being insincere and a con man, but we know that already from all of the stories. So I don't know.
The benefit of the Netflix one being made by Fyre Festival people is they had all this behind the scenes footage because they were fucking there.
Right. And they were filming everything.
As I was watching it, I was like, how did they get this stuff? Oh, that's how. Yeah. It's like literally from their phone, probably.
And their cameras, because they had all of this, like, equipment.
I was like, how did they get access to all this stuff? It's like,
it's them.
It's them. Yeah. It's not someone else handing it over to them. It's literally from them.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know that Billy really, he just keeps saying like, oh, I can't really comment on that because he's getting sued.
Right.
So he doesn't want to, it's kind of useless that he's there, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't think he added much to it at all.
I think the Netflix one, at least for most of it, is trying to like dance this line of like, oh, maybe he was just swept away in this, da 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 da. And then the Hulu one is like, this guy's a lifelong con man.
Yes.
He made cons before. He made cons immediately after. Yep. He does not give a fuck.
He made cons while he was out on bail.
Yeah.
Which you should not have been doing.
And someone is like, I don't know if you've ever been out on bail, but that's when you should be committing the least number of crimes, which I really appreciated because he immediately started conning again.
Yeah.
He
can't help himself.
He is just a pathological liar. I don't know if that's like a clinical term, but whatever, a compulsive liar. And yeah, just a con man to the bone.
Yes.
So that answered that question. I still don't really get his like end game. Like, what did he think was going to happen when all of these people come to this supposed festival that is nothing, that's basically nothing? They've basically just gone to this gravel pit with a few tents propped up.
I honestly think that he has, up until the point where the Fyre Festival fell apart, he lived this life where no matter what he did, someone came in and cleaned it up, right?
Yeah.
He found another investor who gave him more money. You know, he did another scam and it didn't get caught.
He just sort of assumes that somehow it would come together enough that he could, like, get away with it.
Yeah, and he's, living the life where it's like, well, nothing bad's going to ever happen to me. I honestly think he felt
I'll just get away with it.
And he didn't care who he hurt in the process, so whatever.
Sort of like the Amy's baking thing, which I missed out on the social media fallout when that happened. But when this happened, social media was so fun to like,
oh yeah, just
dunk on the Fyre Festival. It was just like a great couple of days
because
it was
memes
just
that came out of that thing.
Yeah, just
some
like
of the
Lord
best
of the Rings style pandemonium,
Lord
like,
of the Flies.
Oh yeah. That is
someone was going to correct us on that one. I'm sorry.
Different lords.
Yes. I mean, maybe also
Rings,
Lord of the Rings.
Flies, they're about the same, right? We all know it.
It's similar.
Yes. I really recommend watching both. So enjoyable.
I watched the Netflix one Friday night, the Hulu one Saturday night. It was a great way to spend my weekend. Honestly, delightful.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make Travis watch the Netflix one with me again because he was working Friday night. So.
Oh yeah, he has to watch it. He has to.
He came in last night just as I was finishing the Hulu one, and I was like, just so you know, I'm making you fucking watch this. This is just bananas.
He loves documentaries. He's gonna love it.
Yeah, he does. Although the problem he has is that he likes to watch documentaries that are like about building big ships. He doesn't like to watch documentaries that make you angry. And this one has moments where, like, I think he's going to be really upset by the exploitation of the local, I don't know, the people who live in the Bahamas. I wasn't sure what to call them. Bahamians? Bahamians? I'm not sure. I think he'll find that upsetting.
Well, it is upsetting. It's disgusting.
But I kind of enjoy that rage,
Yeah, a little bit.
Like, I feel like I'm one of those people that doesn't mind watching documentary that makes me hate humanity.
I realize Billy McFarlane is probably never going to go back to the Bahamas, and actually
he's banned for life.
He's banned for life, which is kind of amazing. But can he be tried in some sort of international court? Is there some, like...
I don't know, because he owes the Bahamas lots of money. Like, it wasn't even just, like, the individual locals really got screwed. People that
he owes, like, all these customs fees.
He really hurt the Bahamas, too, because he didn't pay all those customs fees. They had, like, a 5-year contract that obviously he did not honor.
Well, I'm sure they had to clean up all that mess, and
Because they just bounced. It's not like they were there picking up the FEMA tents.
No.
So it's like...
No, absolutely not. He just got the fuck out. Well, because people put out death threats on him for not paying them, which I was like, yeah, you're not in the U.S., dude. Like, right. Don't fuck with people like that. No. You'll get what you deserve. I would like to see him tried with... Probably not war crimes, but if there's something else.
Or can they sue him? Like, I'm not sure how it works, but it seems like there has to be some way.
I did see that. So they talked to a woman who ran this restaurant and had to do, like, catering, and she had people working, like, 24 hours a day and didn't get paid. And after the Netflix documentary came out, they interviewed her a lot. She set up a GoFundMe, and people... like reimbursed that money that she lost because she had put like her whole retirement savings and stuff into
paying her employees out of her own pocket, and then she just never got paid for it. It's tragic.
So people have given her that money back, but it's also like that's not the responsibility of just random people who watched that and felt bad. Like
right. It's incredible, but it's not. It shouldn't be.
Yeah, I'm glad people did that. She deserves the money, but it's also like. That's not on you. That's on this jerk face.
Right.
Like, who is like the most smug motherfucker? Oh my God.
Yeah. He has a very punchable face.
Yeah. He just... there's so much to say. We could do like 12 shows about it. But I mean, I definitely recommend checking both of them out just to get... And then I really, by the end of the Hulu one, I was like, where's the fucking money?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't pay anyone. He doesn't get anything done. I realize he like spends some money on stupid things, right? He's paying Kylie Jenner or Kendall Jenner
$100,000.
But that's only $100,000. I realize that's huge, but it's like,
well, I know
he's selling these like villas and cabanas that don't exist, and like having people put money on wristbands they never use. Like, where the fuck's that money?
Well, I know, like, specifically, so what the Netflix documentary did not explain, but the Hulu one did with those wristbands, was that he got this loan, but it was such a huge loan that the interest on it was like $6 million. Yes. And he required like a, $2 million immediate payment or something?
Yeah, he basically got a loan from a loan shark.
So he got all of these people who had tickets to to charge money onto these wristbands, I'm doing air quotes, and then he took all that money and paid that with it. So
which just means people would have been there trying to buy stuff and wouldn't have had anything on their wristband.
Right, which the wristbands didn't work because they didn't have internet access,
Oh
so
my God.
It wouldn't have mattered.
It's just such... And then in the Hulu one... The other thing that was like, so they had rented out people's houses because they had promised people they would have these like luxury accommodations that never got built. But then he's like, yeah, we had all the keys in the box and then we lost the box. I was like, what? What are you talking? What?
No, he just didn't have those houses.
Do you think?
Yeah, because the island was like completely booked because they had that sailing event that the island is full every year, and they said I'm not sure which documentary, but they said people reserve rooms a year in advance
because that's like their biggest event.
They started doing this 4 months in advance, so all of those houses were booked. I think he sold what he didn't have, and when people arrived, he was like, "Oh, I lost the keys."
Oh my God!
I think he never had them.
Yeah, they showed like one person that managed to get a house. And the rest of the people are just fighting over FEMA tents in the night.
Stealing mattresses. And
that one guy was peeing on stuff. I hate him. He was like trying to keep other people away from his tent by like destroying other tents. What an absolute fucker.
That's just
if anybody sees that guy, punch him in the face, please.
What an interesting, what like a fascinating social experiment to just like pluck Instagram influencers and like drop them on an island with no internet, no accommodations. They have tents.
None of the stuff they're promised.
Yeah, cheese sandwiches and like...
Not enough water, but $2 million of booze. Just like still on pallets.
And just watch society crumble.
Immediately.
Right.
Like in 5 seconds. Yep. It's just pandemonium and everyone's out for themselves. I do feel, I mean, it was fun to like be like, oh my God, this is such a shit show, blah, 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 blah. But I do feel bad that I feel like if you got just the basic ticket.
That's the thing. It's not fair to be, because a lot of people love, like you said, dunking on these rich millennials. But the thing of it is that the rich one, like the people who are wealthy that went there.
They're fine, whatever.
They just got, if they even left, they got on a plane and immediately went back. Like the people who bought like the $500 economy tickets or whatever, general admission, what they called it. They were the ones that were stranded there.
They thought for $500 they were getting airfare, accommodations, food, and a concert. Like that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Like that
It's not something everyone can afford.
Yeah.
If that's your vacation, like, that's a steal.
Right.
So
I feel bad for people who got stranded there, and ultimately what I feel bad for is that they wasted their fucking vacation time, which is more valuable than gold.
Absolutely.
So they get there and they're like, they think they're going to have this great like the vacation of their life, right? And maybe, you know, they saved up a lot of money for that or sold shit or whatever to go on this thing, and then they get there and they're like, what the fuck is this? I don't get these vacation days back just because this is a total disaster.
No, it's really
fascinating.
I honestly could talk about it forever.
Okay, let's actually talk about Unsolved Mysteries now.
So we are on season 3, episode 13. Lucky number 13.
Ooh.
It's not a Halloween episode, unfortunately.
Are you ready?
Liz has the first one.
Okay. I have
a real long one.
Yeah, this is quite long. I forget if they called this unexplained death, or I didn't write down what they called this segment. But this is the story of Mark Dennis, who was a Navy medic in the Vietnam War. So this is dating back to July 15th, 1966. And the story is that this guy who had wanted to become a missionary Samantha just gave me a look.
Just the way you said that. You wanted to become a missionary.
I wanted to become a missionary, which, whatever. I'll keep my thoughts to myself on that. He signed up for the Vietnam War so that someone with a family wouldn't have to go. And he thought it would be a good experience for him in his later missionary work.
Okay.
I'm sure he meant well. So while, deployed, his unit is in a helicopter that takes fire and is shot down. So we see a reenactment that, God damn it, probably includes his actual family at his house.
Yep.
His dad pulls up, or his brother, and there's a Navy vehicle sitting there, and someone comes out of the house crying, Marky's dead.
It's terrible.
Really, really awful. Like, obviously the worst possible news. So his remains are sent back to his family in Ohio, but the Navy is like, look, you probably don't really want to look at that. And, fair, right?
Yeah,
so,
they were pretty badly burned, as I recall.
Right. So his family complies with that. There's a service. He's buried. But then, a couple years later, there is an article in Newsweek which published a photo of a POW in a POW camp in Vietnam. So this is happening in 1970. And his family becomes convinced that that photo is Mark Dennis.
The resemblance is there, but it's also a really poor photo.
It's a bad, grainy, not
black and white, dark photo.
Honestly, when they showed it, I was like, yeah, I get why they thought that, but also I feel like from the photo we see of Mark Dennis, he has a pretty, pointy head. Mm-hmm. He has a long face and sort of a distinctive skull. Yeah. That sounds terrible, but it's like...
It's a distinct shape.
Comparing his head shape to the photo of the POW, I was like, yeah, that's not the same guy. Just to me. But also... it's a terrible photo. I think you would see whatever you wanted to see in that photo.
That's the thing, too, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but we find out later that that's not him, and they know who it actually is. And honestly, they show a picture of the man who it is, does not look like that photo. So I think it's just a factor of the shadows and the angle. You can take a photo of someone and it doesn't really look like them, especially if it's poor, it's grainy, poor quality, it's dark, it's shadowed,
Yeah. So at this point, his family becomes convinced that he's still alive and still in Vietnam. So they ask for the Navy to send over his death certificate, at which point they find out that his body was identified basically by process of elimination because the remains were completely burned. Mm-hmm. So they're hoping that at the end of the war, he's going to come home. Well, when the released POWs come back in 1973, Mark is not among them. So they start to become suspicious of what they have buried in the cemetery and actually have those remains exhumed in order to examine them, because they hear from this dentist who like once met a guy from Mark's unit who said, oh, no one in that unit actually thinks Mark's dead. He wasn't supposed to be on that helicopter, blah, blah, blah. But I don't remember that guy's name, so you can't track him down again, even though how many people could be in this unit? I don't really get that part.
Yeah.
It fuels this desire in them that their loved one is still alive. Okay, so they have the body exhumed, and because of the state of remains, the official way that it would be buried is you open up the casket. On top is his uniform. Below the uniform is a blanket covering the body, and attached to the blanket are the dog tags. This again fuels this family's suspicion because the dog tags have clearly never been worn. They still have sharp edges, and it looks like they've kind of been burnt, but like theatric, like,
okay,
you know,
yeah, like maybe they were brand new and
they were like, oh, we'll make these look like they've been in a helicopter crash.
Yeah.
Well, when they talk to the military about it, at first they say, oh, maybe it was thrown from the helicopter, and the family's like, that doesn't make sense. And when they get an official word, they're like, no, the dog tags weren't recovered because his body was so badly charred. These are new dog tags that were made on site.
Symbolic.
Yeah, to identify and place with the body. And
which makes sense. There's no way you can recover the dog tags 100% of the time.
no.
It's not like they're out there combing through the wreckage in a war zone trying to
the
recover
jungle.
them. Yeah.
They're like out scouring for, like, that's just impossible.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it was actually burnt. I'm sure that was just like the state of the metal, or like, you know, like,
Yeah.
I think they're really looking for any tiny sign that maybe he's still alive. And I get that. It's just like, it's unfortunate to me that this gets dragged out for so long, because they should be allowed to grieve.
Right.
And it would be better for them to have had the burial and gone through that process of grief.
Right.
But instead it keeps getting like drawn out and prolonged because they're finding these little like fragments of what seems like hope, but I think is actually worse.
Misguided. Well, situations like this always remind me of that book we read by Judy Melanek, The Working Stiff, the one about her life as a medical examiner, and how she talked about how common it is for families to not accept that the body of their loved one who died traumatically or died in any way is actually them. Like, it could be like down to the, like, if the medical examiner neglects to record a tattoo, even something as small as that, the families will sometimes refuse to believe, or not be able to believe.
Why isn't this tattoo in this report?
That it's like, actually the body of their loved one.
Right.
And how common that is, and how frequently and how careful they have to be so that this doesn't happen. And I can understand where you would want to believe that this is a mistake and that your loved one is still out there, but
denial is just so powerful. It's such a strong force. They're like, they have some of the bones examined, and they feel like these are the bones of someone that's 5'7", but Mark was actually 6 foot. We hear a lot from a Lieutenant Colonel James Cole, who has a mustache, which I drew.
I think I wrote that one down. Oh, nice.
And I called it the Mach 3, because it's like very precisely shaved, you know? And at one point someone says they were comparing eggs and oranges, and I was like, not a phrase.
That's not the phrase.
That's not a thing. So they're at this point so suspicious that they ask the official records to be changed, that Mark Dennis is not dead but missing in action. And I did the tiniest bit more research on this. There's an article in Newsweek that I would really recommend called "The Story Behind the POW MIA Flag," and it talks about how Nixon is the one that introduced the missing in action classification. I don't even know what you call that, but he introduced that term, and that previously soldiers would have been considered
killed in action,
deceased, body not recovered, or something like that. But he sort of put this idea that, like, oh, they might be still out there, which
they're missing. Yeah.
They're missing. We don't really know what happened, and I think that's honestly harmful to, like, prolong that. Anyway, so that's like that is sort of in this area as a new terminology, and I feel like that sort of factors into the story and the thinking of this family.
Oh, probably.
Then instead of accepting that your loved one is dead, you continue to have this hope. Anyway, the prisoners come home in 73. Mark's not with them. At some point, Robert Stack seems like he's in a school, and I don't understand why. They end up talking to... There was one soldier who survived the helicopter crash, and the family ends up hearing from him, and he says that 2 men jumped out, but he assumed that they died. And then the military was like, this is a helicopter that's plummeting to the earth.
They did not survive.
They did not survive. And also, just because he thinks they jumped out doesn't mean they actually made it out, or like this is a smoky, very confusing situation. Who the hell knows?
Right.
But there's no way they just like got up and walked away.
Out.
Then there's a very, very annoying scene where, was this his brother? I think his brother and his wife.
Yeah.
His brother's wife, who has a fantastic fucking beehive. This gigantic, hot, like, white beehive is totally amazing. So they're in D.C., investigating, looking for clues, whatever. They're in a bar talking about it. And this fucking chode named...
comes over. I overheard your conversation.
Named... What was his name?
Who cares? You could call him a chode for the rest of the day.
Yeah, this fucking chode comes over and is like, oh, I couldn't help but overhear your situation. I also was a POW in the war, and I was moved to several camps, and I did once meet someone named Dennis. And they're like, oh my God, what was his last name? And he was like, yeah, so...
We all went by nicknames,
yeah.
So I actually don't know.
Obviously, I wouldn't want to know people's names, so maybe I could relay that information to someone. Obviously, we went by nicknames, and they were like, well...
But he knew his first name.
What was
not his last name.
What was his nickname? And it was like, picked the most fucking generic nickname that someone in the military could have. Oh, we called him Preacher. And then his brother was like, oh my God, it had to be him because he was religious and no one else is. And this makes me so angry. So then, of course, at this point in the conversation, they pull out a photo and the guy's like, oh, that's him. Guess what?
Wasn't him.
This guy's not legit.
He's never been a prisoner. Yeah. The military has no record of a man by this name.
I feel like this guy is
being
just
a prisoner of war.
Con artist.
Of course he is.
He was just trying to get money out of them or something. He was probably seeing if they were good marks and then probably found out they didn't have any money and fucking moved on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But if he could have been like, oh, if only I had a couple grand to go to Vietnam, I could probably get him out myself. I know where it is,
Yep.
And then they could have like given him their life savings, and they never would have heard from quote unquote John King again.
Yep.
What a chode. I mean, that's completely reprehensible that you would prey on people in this situation. It's so gross. So the Navy tells us that photo that was in Newsweek... Okay, so this airs on Unsolved Mysteries at one point. Guess what?
Unsolved Mysteries has to come back and do a correction.
The Navy is not happy.
No.
That clearly got a lot of phone calls from a lot of angry old ladies that were like, how dare you? What have you done with Mark Dennis? And so Robert Stack has to come out in the gentleman's study and be like, okay, so we heard from the Navy and we've got a few updates for you folks. One of them was that the photo in Newsweek is actually this guy, Paul Gelenti. And Samantha's right, it doesn't really look anything up. But is he eating? Like,
right,
it's not a good photo of him.
No.
So...
But they confirmed that was, in fact, him.
That was, yeah. So that's not Mark Dennis. This guy, John King, is not a known POW. According to Unsolved Mysteries Wiki, it's like he's found out later to be a fraud. I don't really know what that means, but...
Like, no one's surprised.
It's not legit. Unsolved Mysteries has... the bones buried as Mark Dennis re-examined against known x-rays, and it correlates, right? They're distinctive, whatever. I don't know.
He had some injury in childhood, I think.
Yeah.
He broke his collarbone or something. I don't know exactly what it was, but yeah, they pretty much definitively determined that those were his bones.
Those are actually his remains. I think part of the problem might have been that this is a fucking helicopter explosion. Are those all his remains? Are those only his remains?
Yeah.
how are you really gonna know?
Yeah, it's hard.
Like, this is the middle of battle, right? So, yeah, maybe one of the leg bones was too short because that one wasn't his leg. That was somebody else's leg.
I know. And the thing of it is, you know, like I said, they can't be out there doing an archaeological dig, you know, painstakingly separating each individual remain.
I respect that the military wanted to give... This is the only time I will respect anything about the military. I will respect that the military wanted to give the family something to bury.
Yep.
And maybe not every aspect of that was completely correct. I don't think that's malicious.
No.
I understand why the family assumes the military is lying to them.
Sure.
Like, that makes perfect sense to me. I think getting the death certificate was a smart move. I think after that leaves you with questions. I think exhuming the body is smart to put that to rest for yourself.
But you can't ignore the evidence, and that's kind of what they're doing at the end of the segment. They still have not...
Okay, according to Unsolved Mysteries Wiki, in the end, they do accept...
Oh, good.
That, yes...
Because where they leave you in the show, they've decided to have him removed from Arlington and buried in a different... remove the remains, which they do not believe at the time was their son, and bury him in a different cemetery.
Okay. So this is from what we have from Unsolved Mysteries Wiki, and I don't say this enough, but Unsolved Mysteries Wiki, everybody updated. You're fucking heroes.
Truly.
Thank you. Because some of these updates, I can't find, I don't know where you're getting them. So, like, yeah, thanks. Because it says here, like, John King has since been located after the Unsolved Mysteries podcast and revealed to be a fraud.
Okay.
I don't really know what that means, but...
Not surprised.
Yeah. As reported on Unsolved Mysteries, in a follow-up on the Mark Dennis case, a forensic examiner of the 1966 remains involved historical x-rays of his spine matched positive to spinal material. Okay, so we knew that. In the period of several years, bones in the possession of the Dennis family have been tested multiple times by independent experts and concluded that they didn't belong to Mark Dennis. The Navy kept saying they did. Jerry Dennis, who was the person, like, most suspicious. Okay, also, I left this part out, and I've got it. One of the reasons, after talking to John King, that he's convinced that Mark is still alive is because he is a medic and, quote, would be valuable to these people.
Yeah. They're convinced that...
There's some racism.
Yeah, there's
playing some, perhaps a very large amount.
Quite a bit.
Playing into this as well. And I think that is partly... That's partly their own biases, and that's partly government manipulation of justifying the war. Mm-hmm. But whenever you're hearing people talk about these people, you're really gotta...
Yeah, take a critical look at that.
So he died in 2002 without knowing whatever happened to his brother. In 2016, after a 50-year agonizing and frustrating search for the truth, the Dennis family requested a final forensic examination of the remains using DNA technology. And that came back for Mark Dennis.
So they finally had DNA. I was kind of wondering if they ever in the future got DNA.
I'm a little bit surprised they waited till 2016, but whatever.
Maybe they couldn't afford it.
Yeah, but I'm sure that just showed a familial match, and then they were like, oh, okay.
Finally able to put it to rest. Good. Well, I'm glad his family finally was able to get closure.
The Dennis family then decided to officially accept the report, if only to bring some measure of... Guys, it's him.
It's him.
It's him. So the remains were then cremated and buried alongside the graves of Mark's late mother and father in Florida in April 2017.
Okay.
With full military honors. He does have a Vietnam memorial page, if you would like to visit that. Yeah, this isn't really a mystery. It's just a hardship for a family, and...
Yeah, it's too bad that all those years they had to spend
just suffering. And I realized I would have always missed him, but my completely non-professional opinion was that it would have been so much healthier if they could have
accepted that they had his remains and that he wasn't still out there.
I referred to this article on Newsweek. I really do recommend it. It talks about the myth that there are still POWs sitting in cages in Vietnam that they're just keeping there for some reason.
Feeding.
Yeah, that they would still be alive somehow, so Rambo could go set them free. And it sort of talks about how that myth got started as perpetuated by Nixon and then also the Chinese government, because that sort of served their purposes. I found this really interesting, so I'll post a link to that if you're curious.
Good. Check that out. We'll probably post it on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay.
I still can't post links on Instagram because I don't have a big enough following.
Well,
Instagram,
there you
get
go.
on it.
There's a reason to follow us.
Yeah, if you don't follow us on Instagram,
Perhaps it's
help
you.
us out.
Make us influencers that could go to a disastrous festival so they could be like, the Perhaps It's You girls are going to be there. We got to be there. They're going to be swimming with pigs and by Pablo Escobar's island.
Someone pay me $100,000 to post something on our Instagram page.
I have, we have like not even 500 Twitter followers. I really want to get to 666.
Seriously.
But,
we got a ways to go.
Yeah, somehow I don't think we're going to get paid for posts. I'm just picturing us out there. We would have come with like big sun hats and that like...
I would be wearing my SPF clothing. So it'd be long sleeves.
That like zinc sunblock that...
the giant wide brim hat.
I have swimming like capri pants. Like that's my swimsuit. We're just like shuffling out there. And we're like,
We've got a big beach bag full of snacks. We're like, we're here for the party.
We're here. I heard Blink 182 is going to be here, so I
literally almost fell off my chair.
We're the worst bands of all time, so I had to be here. See, and then they're like, we have cheese sandwiches? All right.
Okay. Not so bad. Booze and cheese sandwiches?
Kind of a waste of money. I got a mattress that's on the ground, and there's probably like little sand mites, but whatever.
Only 5 miles from the beach.
Oh my God.
Right. Anyway.
We just like break into that Sandals resort that was nearby. That would have been the smart thing to do.
Truly.
You just like try to act like you're a paying customer at Sandals.
Walk in the door.
Hey! Okay.
All right, I have our next one, and it is a wanted. So the FBI is searching for a man suspected of killing at least 5 women. They don't say this in the show, but on Murderpedia, I looked him up, and he was known as the Lady Killer.
Oh.
I think
How is that not already taken?
That's what I thought. There's probably more than one. But I thought they missed an opportunity to call him the Sideburn Killer.
Oh.
But because he's got some wicked sideburns.
No, that can't be our MVM. Sorry, never mind.
He's a dirtbag.
He's
and
a
also,
total dirtbag.
Sideburns aren't a mustache.
No, they're not. I just thought it would be like I kind of want the beehive to be
the MVM.
I do have a couple MVMs for this mystery. There's one guy named Edward Brown who's got square frame glasses.
Was
what?
that Natalie's brother?
Yes.
I wrote him down as well.
I just called that one square frames.
Nice.
Later, we'll get a Detective Joseph Surlack.
I really liked his mustache.
I called that the ginger ale.
That's good. I thought they were sort of shaped like 2 fish kissing.
Yes. Okay, we could call it the Swedish fish.
Yes, I like that.
Because he's got like ginger hair, which is why I called him the ginger ale. But I like the Swedish fish, actually.
I like that too.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
All right, on July 31st, 1971, in Nassau County, New York, around 11 p.m., a man named Ricardo Caputo made a call to the police. This reenactment is chilling. It's got like close-up shots of Ricardo's bloody hand holding the payphone. Everything's cast in shadow. Ricardo told the police to go to the home of his girlfriend's parents. Her name was Natalie Brown. Caputo had been dating Natalie for over a year and told authorities that he intended to marry her. Detectives went to the home and found Natalie on the floor of the kitchen covered in blood. She had been stabbed repeatedly. Again, this reenactment is like super gruesome. So we have 2 detectives, both wearing Robert Stack trench coats.
Yes,
and they stand over the body of a woman who's covered in blood, and she's on the ground but sort of propped up against the cupboards.
It's brutal.
It gives you chills. So Detective Vance Rendell says that it was the worst he'd ever seen. Natalie's brother is interviewed for the show. He's the one that has the square frame glasses and the mustache. He says that
he's got a good hipster look.
He really does. He says that he never saw any signs of, quote, volatile behavior on the part of Caputo. He says that their parents seemed to like him and thought that he was, quote, a nice boy. So Robert Stack...
This is why you can't trust anyone.
It's true. It's true. So Robert Stack says that Natalie's friends and family described Ricardo as amiable and attractive with a winning personality. But in the case of Ricardo Caputo, appearances were more than deceiving. They became a lethal weapon.
Oh my goodness. Like the movie?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't know. Okay, so Robert Stack goes on to say that police believe that since 1971, Caputo has used his lethal charms to kill again and again and again.
And again.
And again.
And again.
And again.
Because he killed a bunch of people.
He did. That was a good Robert Stack quote.
Yeah, that's cool. That's solid.
Police-
Put that on a plaque. I'll hang that up.
He used his lethal charms to kill again and again and again.
Hanging up in my house.
Like, okay, Liz has gone a step too far.
Does any of our 5 listeners work at like an engraving place? Does anyone work at a place that makes like plaques and trophies? Could you whip one of those up for me?
Burn that onto some wood.
Yeah.
Make a wall hanging. So
I get the most like hideous wall hanging in the mail, and I'm like, I'm not hanging this up. Put this on the fire.
Police discover after arresting Caputo that he had been treated for mental illness at an Argentina hospital before he came to the United States in 1970. A psychiatric review determined that he was not competent to stand trial, so he was remanded to the Matawan State Hospital in upstate New York. I tried to find out if he had a diagnosis or what his mental illness was, and it doesn't seem like anything on the internet talks about it, so I really wasn't able to find.
I would be curious why he wasn't fit to stand trial, because it does seem like he's very competent. He's just
really appears to be a lot of. I mean, the articles focus on his killing spree and don't really talk about.
That would be interesting if anybody knows that.
And I'm going to be honest. I did minimal research, so it might be out there.
Well, of course.
So
what do you think this show is?
So Matawan was a maximum security institution. There, Caputo met a 26-year-old psychologist named Judith Becker. Jane Storrs. Judith.
Okay, I failed to mention that we were inspired by a certain corset maker to be living life.
Up the glamour in our life.
Yeah, which of course meant that we needed to record today while drinking champagne floats and eating French toast sticks, which is what glamorous people do.
Look, it's Minnesota glamour, all right.
Yeah, I saw French toast sticks at the store and I went, this is happening.
We put whipped cream and blueberries on them.
I made that whipped cream.
It was delicious.
I whipped that up and I put some maple syrup in there. We have fresh blueberries. But okay, so the champagne float, at first I was like, I don't know about this.
Has it gotten better?
It's gotten better as it's melted. I took a sip and was so pleasantly surprised. Whoa. Cheers to me.
That is good. Yeah, it tasted a little weird at first. I think we should have gotten sorbet instead of vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, that would be better.
But you're right. Like, now there's this, like, foamy
froth to it. It's very like
ice
silky
cream froth on the top that's infused with champagne.
We're gonna be trying to live more glamorous podcasting lives.
Okay, give us your feedback on this. Liz thinks we should get luxurious robes,
podcasting robes
to wear, because like we say every episode,
it's cold in here.
We have to turn the heat off. It's gonna be negative 68 degrees this week in Minnesota. That's not the wind chill. That's the actual air temperature. You can step outside and fucking die. I think we could easily put luxurious robes on over our clothes.
Should they have our names embroidered on them?
Should they have for sure a monogram?
Yeah,
for sure.
I wonder if you could just get like a UFO.
I was gonna say maybe Robbie Stacky's head.
Yeah,
just like the gray alien head.
I gotta go look at Etsy on luxurious robes.
Is this what we do with your Patreon money? Maybe.
Sure. I feel like that's what people would want us to do.
That's a podcasting expense. Robes to keep us warm.
Yeah. Trying to stay alive here. I'm wearing my grandma shawl.
Liz is wearing the shawl that Gary knitted for us.
This is actually very handy for podcasting.
It really is, because like I have a big quilt over me, which is warm but a little clumsy. It's kind of big. That one's just the perfect size.
I have a blanket on my lap, and then my my shawl, still in my pajamas, of course, because God damn it, I'm just hitting everything today. Because I'm living a life. What I aspire to is like a life of very luxurious but lazy glamour. You know, like glamorous,
the best kind,
loungewear. Like I want to be lying on a fainting couch or on a veranda. I don't want to be really doing anything.
The police knock on your door to ask where your husband has been, and for
then
the last 2 weeks.
I stand up in my robe and I'd be like, "Oh, my husband? Why, I haven't seen him in such time. Have you checked the garage?" You know. And then I like adjust my gigantic black brim hat drink my champagne float. This is what I want, because I watched too many old movies on PBS as a child, and I really thought adult life was going to involve, like, throwing drinks into fireplaces and solving murders on trains.
It should.
I don't know.
It's bullshit.
I don't know why. I had parents, and they didn't do those things. But I was like, I need a bar cart, I need a fainting couch, and I need luxurious robes.
We're getting there.
Yeah. The podcast is rolling in.
Yeah.
Slowly rolling in.
Slowly. Okay, so we see...
randomest tangent. Just me being like, ooh, what a great float.
Liz took a sip of her float and discovered that it's aged well over the course of this podcast. They've been sitting here. They don't look appetizing, I'll say that. No. But they're pretty tasty.
It looks a little bit like an egg cream.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Okay, so we see Jane Storrs, Judith's sister, who describes Judith as wanting her patients to trust her like they would a friend. Judith was charmed by Caputo. We see a reenactment in which Judith tells Caputo that he has been recommended for a program in which inmates are going to go outside and grow a garden, and he cheerfully says, "I will grow you the biggest tomatoes." Over the next 2 years, Caputo worked to gain Judith's trust.
What would someone say to you to gain your trust, Samantha? I will find you
growing me the biggest tomatoes is not a bad choice.
I will find you the largest houseplant.
I love a garden. Yes.
And then you would be like, this guy can't be all bad. I know he committed murder most foul, but I would like to see these houseplants.
He's getting me a monstera? Okay, yeah.
He would be like, I've saved these mini eggs from you from last Easter. And I would be like, oh, you couldn't be such an evil man.
You have my trust.
Yeah. Are you serving that to me in an old Pyrex dish? Topped with a Polly Pocket?
We've had a lot of requests for Liz's rich person voice. I think people were a little disappointed that when we were talking about the rich...
She was English, and I'm not going to do an English voice.
Sure.
So that's why there wasn't rich... I should have just done the regular rich person voice, but...
Yeah, missed opportunity. We can't go back and do it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Someone invent a time machine, and I'll redo the episode.
All right, so Detective John Serlack, who... I think he was the one with the Swedish fish mustache.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Says that other inmates reported that Caputo began bragging to them that he was going to use Judith Baker to escape. 2 years after arriving in Matawan, Judith helped Ricardo get transferred to a Manhattan psychiatric hospital. This hospital was much less restrictive and allowed patients to leave the facility during the day. I don't know how this came to be, that he got transferred there.
Yeah, I think that would be a good policy, like, in general, but not for
someone who stabbed a woman, like... over and over again. Yeah, I'm not sure he is the right candidate.
Not anticipating that this guy he's patient. This is a long con, man. He's not in it for like 5 minutes to try to escape.
2 years it took.
Yeah, like he'll keep working that charm until he gets what he wants.
Mm-hmm. So this new freedom allowed Judith and Caputo to spend more time together outside of the hospital walls. There is debate about how intimate the two were. Detective Serlack says that Ricardo would routinely go to Judith's apartment in Yonkers, and we kind of know what he's implying. But Judith's sister insists that their relationship was not romantic. Jane says that her sister, quote, knew enough about her profession to know what would be considered inappropriate. But the thing is that Judith already crossed a line with Ricardo
by having him literally go to where she lives. The thing is, the line is definitely blurred, if not completely crossed. I think that she honestly was optimistic and trying to help him, and maybe did get kind of snowed in by his charm. But I think that she let her personal and professional life, in trying to help him, I think she let those two worlds blur too much.
I think so. And the other reason why people believe that they had a romantic relationship in some capacity was that she even took Caputo home to meet her family, introducing him as a co-worker.
Yeah, that is weird.
In October...
Fair enough.
1974, Judith failed to meet her parents for a boating trip. They became concerned.
They're like standing outside on her front steps arguing in the reenactment, and I found that incredibly realistic and hilarious.
Yes, it quite was.
Did you push the right button? I was like, I did, but it like...
I loved that. So they got the superintendent to let them in. Inside, they discovered dinner for two on the coffee table in the living room. In Judith's bedroom, they found her body. She had been beaten and strangled.
That is terrible, but did I love Judith's place? Her living room has the most gigantic bar running down one side of it with like every type of cup. That's glamour.
That really was.
That's glamour.
We're on the lookout for glamour now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I can't remember who, some actress that John Waters works with recommended keeping a bar in your bedroom.
Ooh.
And that idea has really stuck with me. It was like, if you want to get men, you need a bar in like every room of your house, including your bedroom. And I was like, that is pretty great.
It would be nice. You're just sitting in bed.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't have room for that in my bedroom, but I like the way you think. You're very wise.
So police began to hunt for Caputo, but he had disappeared into thin air. 6 months later, Ricardo met another woman. Barbara Taylor was a book editor in San Francisco. There are photos of them visiting Yosemite, but on March 30th, 1975, Barbara was discovered beaten to death in her apartment. Caputo's fingerprints were found at the scene. 6 months later, in Texas, a man calling himself Ricardo Diaz was handed over to U.S. immigration by Mexican authorities. They said that detained at a facility in El Paso. No charges were filed against him. They said it was an administrative thing. I don't know what that means, but...
Sounds racist, but whatever.
Yeah, when he was fingerprinted, Ricardo knew that his true identity would soon be discovered, so one night he and 3 other detainees took a guard hostage. They had made makeshift weapons from items they found in the kitchen. The men fled the compound, fleeing across the border into Mexico using a stolen car. All of the men were recaptured except for Caputo. So Caputo made it to Mexico City, where he moved in with a college student named Laura Marie Gomez. Aww. She was 21 years old. 2 years later, Laura Marie was found in her apartment, brutally tortured and murdered. She was 2.5 months pregnant with Caputo's baby. Police believe Ricardo is also responsible for the murder of 60-year-old Jackie Bernard, a prominent author and social activist. Bernard was found murdered in her West Side Manhattan apartment. On January 22nd, 1985, a private investigator who's also wearing a Robert Stack trench coat.
Look, Robert Stack has set the trend out there, and everybody's just following along.
He really did. So he received an anonymous phone call identifying Jackie's killer as Ricardo Caputo. The caller claimed that Caputo bragged about killing several other women and also some men. The superintendent of Jackie's apartment building was shown a photo of Caputo and was certain that he had seen the same man attempting to gain entrance into Jackie's apartment. In the update, we see a terrible police sketch that looks nothing like Ricardo Caputo. They have photos of him, so I don't know why they didn't show that. And it says...
Yeah, it's like, just, why release a sketch?
There's no point.
This sketch is just like an egg with a face drawn on it.
Pretty much. So it says that...
What if that's what they released? They like held up an egg with like a smiley face drawn. They're like, look for this guy.
Have you seen those like Instagram videos where people take an egg and put makeup on it and make it look like a little face?
Yes.
I love those. People are real good at it. Anyway. Maybe, what if they did that, but they made it Ricardo Caputo?
That would have been more realistic than the sketch. If it had actually looked like him. Yeah. Like, we put makeup on this egg to simulate his face, and everybody was like, oh, I know that guy. We'll find him later today.
So the update says that after nearly 20 years on the run, Ricardo Caputo turned himself in to police in New York City. He pled guilty to 2 murders, and was sentenced to 25 years to life. After serving only 3 years, Caputo died of a heart attack while playing basketball in Attica. He was 48 years old.
This is a very strange case.
Yeah.
I think he's technically a serial killer, but I can't really think of someone else that's like with someone for 2 years, then murdering them, and then moving on.
Right.
The cooling off murder period thing is so strange.
It's bizarre. They describe him as having a violent temper, so it does seem like he will get to a point where it snaps. There's some, and at some point he will get so violent that he will end up murdering someone. Probably these relationships were abusive, and it just got to a point where eventually he was bound to kill them, and he did, and then he moved on to the next woman.
Ugh.
So pretty awful. And yeah, took 20 years to find him. And actually, they didn't find him. He turned himself in.
He just got sick of being on the run. I was like, I'd rather play basketball in Attica. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess. So that's really...
Wow.
It's an upsetting story. And yeah, Unsolved Mysteries talks about very few serial killers. This wasn't a serial killer I've heard of. So...
Yeah. I'm sad he wasn't caught minutes after the broadcast, but...
Yeah. Can't catch them all.
Can't catch them all. No, it's not Pokemon. Okay. I have an unexplained for everyone. We haven't had one of these in a while.
No, we haven't.
So Robert Stack tells us that UFOs can usually be explained away as airplane lights, weather balloons, military maneuvers, even mass hysteria.
Okay.
But then goes on to explain that sometimes there is photographic proof that is hard even for skeptics to dismiss. This is one of those cases.
Is this when he was walking through that hall with the photographs hanging?
He starts in
side?
like a gentleman's study again, but then he starts walking down a hall that's...
It was almost an art exhibit of this woman's photographs.
Giant blow-up photos of these Vancouver lights, which they almost look like fireworks. They're just like trails of light.
It looks like someone took a photo on like low shutter speed of some fireworks, or maybe like a flashlight thrown into the air.
Yeah, they're not detailed. They're just like a squiggly light
line
thing
in the sky.
Right. Okay. So we hear about that in Vancouver, there's an inordinate number of UFO sightings, but many of them are by the same woman, Dorothy Izat. Her first...
Dorothy.
She's super sweet.
Yes.
So sweet. So charming. Come on the show, Dorothy. We would love to have you.
I'm not sure Dorothy's with us anymore.
Well, what? Her ghost is welcome.
Well, her ghost is always invited. Anyone's ghost is... Well, maybe not anyone.
Samantha.
Lots of ghosts are invited.
We're going to get the ghost of Jack the Ripper in here. It's going to be terrible.
We want some answers. No. Don't turn your Jack the Ripper's ghost away.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Could you imagine if we broke that story?
No. I can't.
The ghost of Jack the Ripper is on the show today. It's going to tell all.
I cannot imagine that. I literally can't. Okay. Dorothy's first UFO sighting was in 1974. She was in her kitchen making some tea, and then she felt like someone was watching her. Like that song. And she looked out her window, and what did she see? But an enormous diamond.
Yes.
And she said, "It was so beautiful to look at. I felt very privileged to be able to see something like that."
What a nice thing to say.
Yeah. Of course, Dorothy's friends and family did not believe that she had seen a UFO.
What did they think she saw?
I don't know. That she hit her head or something. Who knows? But she was motivated by their skepticism to prove that she was right.
I can understand.
Goddamn, do I appreciate that.
I relate, Dorothy.
She didn't have this conversation where she was like, Samantha, you're never going to believe what I saw last night. And Samantha goes, yeah, right. And she didn't go, oh, yeah, you're probably right. It was probably just a light or something.
She was like, show you.
I'll show you. As I was sitting there making tea, you thought I was this sweet little lady. No, I'm going to show you, bitch. So out of spite, she decides to find a way to communicate with the lights. Okay.
Sure.
She goes outside with a flashlight and she like blinks it 3 times. And that's
dangerous, Dorothy. You know what you're saying to these aliens?
Also, are they just like always there? I guess. She was literally like, "Well, I'm gonna communicate with them. I'll just go outside right now. Blink, blink, blink." And they blink black. Blink, blink, blink. She was like, "Oh, they are communicating. They're intelligent. It's not just me." Okay. So. Oh, okay. Then she caught this on film, these lights. And what was different about it being on film versus her naked eye is that she could see that there was this momentary flash of light. And if you look at just that frame, you have these little dots of light, but then there's like squiggles in between them on just that one frame. And she interpreted that as the dots were communicating with each other.
Okay.
Like, hey, what the hell's Dorothy up to? I don't know. Why does she keep insulting us with that 3 thing? What a bitch. Who knows? Okay, so then we hear from a psychologist who's like, look, I'm not a photography professional. I can't speak on the nature of her photographs, but I will tell you that Dorothy is a nice person and she's not lying. Sure.
Okay. No, I'm sure Dorothy believes that she's seeing aliens.
Exactly. Lights. Just because Dorothy is not lying doesn't mean that it's true. Right. I think in her heart, she sincerely believes what she's saying. Okay, great. Then we hear from a photography expert that says, like, look, you can make these light tricks in various ways. What I can't explain is how she's getting these really bright lights to occur on only one frame. So she publishes these photos. She's in lots of like UFO magazines and newsletters, whatever. So she becomes famous to like UFO stans. I don't know. Me in the 7th grade, those people. So people would come to visit her to hear of her tale. People sought her out. And we hear from one dude, who I really just wrote down one dude. I have no idea what his name was. Goes to visit her, and as she's telling her story, he's like, Dorothy, I don't mean to be rude, but it's hard to listen to you while I hear this very loud, weird sensation in one ear. And Dorothy was like, oh, you hear it too? And he was like, yes. And she was like, you're the first one that can hear it. And he's like, hear what? And she was like, they're here.
Well, that's creepy.
So they go to the window, and he looks out, and he's like, I don't see anything. And she was like, but where are you looking? And he was like, I'm looking like off in the distance. And she was like, no, it's right there. And she points to one side, and he was like, oh, there it is. And it was like this metal object floating there. And she giggled, and the guy interpreted that giggle as her saying, there you go. What do you think of that?
That's not how I would interpret it, but...
And then I kind of drew the object, which is sort of UFO-shaped, but more boxy, and I had no sense of how big that was supposed to be. Was that, like, the size of a hot dog?
Maybe.
Or was that, like, a ship a person could get on? I have no...
choose to believe it was the size of a hot dog. The aliens... We don't know how big these aliens are, okay? They could be very small.
I don't
They're all just... They've got little holes in the side of the hot dog. They're looking out, waving at Dorothy.
I don't understand. So there's not a whole lot more to the story. She wanted to keep recording and preserving these visitations so that other people could study and make sense of them. Unsolved Mysteries went to visit her. She pointed at the lights, and they were like, we don't see anything. There's nothing there, Dorothy. And they got her to record on her camera, and a couple of lights showed up, and they were like, well, use our camera. And nothing showed up except one tiny light that couldn't be explained. And I was like dust? Like a car driving in the distance, reflecting off a window?
Firefly? Like what? Maybe her camera is just broken.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, was maybe like light is getting into her camera, like it's not sealed properly, and it's creating these weird effects on the film. What was unusual about her case at the time was that she was capturing stuff on an 8mm camera as well as a film camera, and I feel like most UFO footage before that was all just still photography. Huh. But that doesn't mean there's not something wrong with her 8mm camera, particularly if it's only showing up on her camera and not like more professional cameras.
Yeah.
But Dorothy seems like a very nice woman. It doesn't say here that she's dead, so she's welcome to come on the show.
You're invited, Dorothy.
Yeah.
If you're listening.
Hope to see you soon. The end.
The end. Well, that was the last segment on today's episode.
We spent so much on the Mark Dennis case that we only got 3 mysteries, and you know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Bad! That's how I feel.
Okay.
Did I just scream in your ear? Sorry.
Yeah, so should we rate this episode?
Sure. Mysteriousness. Not very mysterious.
No.
Mark Dennis, sorry to say, is dead.
Yeah,
that guy is a murderer.
They knew who was responsible for these murders.
I don't think these lights are real.
No, some good thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
Reenactments. They were okay.
Fine.
I mean, the ones in my mystery were pretty chilling. I don't know if that's appropriate, but
yeah.
So I don't know how to rate that, but
the Mark Dennis ones were kind of sad.
Yeah.
The lights ones were kind of silly. It's all over the place.
Yeah, it really is.
So it's a thumb is just like wiggling. Whoa. Yeah. That's what it gets.
Okay, that's fine. It's our podcast. We can rate it however we want. Yep. Fashion.
Okay.
The beehive.
I have to give it a thumbs way up just for the beehive. It's so good.
That beehive
I wanted to put little bees in it. If anybody saw the
sticks, you just stick them
most
in.
recent Drag Race All-Stars, where Latrice Royale was wearing a great beehive that had a little fake bees in it. That's, oh man, so good. Okay.
This woman could have used those.
Could have used those.
Yeah, I liked it.
Sure, fine. I mean, there's
really
a lot of trench coats.
Lots of trench coats.
And a beehive. So yeah, that gets a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Robert Stack?
Yeah. He's in a school? I don't get that part. I like him walking through the gallery of UFO photos, clearly being like, so this woman's a loon. Let's hear about her. Because you can tell he hates all of these paranormal segments.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
I don't know. There's going to be a lot of weird noises in this episode.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't know where those noises are coming from.
I think it's a ghost, but...
Maybe.
I feel like if we say it's a ghost, it's fine that we leave it in the recording.
I don't know how to remove it, but it's just a ghost.
It's a ghost. It's good.
So, out of a possible 5 Robert Stacks.
I don't really like this one.
I wasn't a huge fan.
I'm going to say 2.
Yeah, like a 2.5 maybe.
I was curious about the Mark Dennis thing because I was ready to be like, the Navy's lying to them, da-da-da-da-da. But in the end, it's just sad.
When you first see the photo, you really are like, whoa. Is that him?
Yeah.
The resemblance is striking, but then you find out that it's really not. That's not the case.
I'm just like primed to be suspicious of the military. So I was like, sure, let's go there. Let's do this. And then I was like, oh, this is just sad. I just feel bad for them.
Yeah. It's depressing.
It's depressing, and I don't know.
Do you have a recommendation for us?
I do.
Okay.
I actually have a podcast recommendation.
Ooh, I love hearing new podcasts.
I don't know that you will like this podcast.
Okay.
But I do.
All right, let's hear it.
It is called the Purple Stuff Podcast. And it's almost hard to categorize. It's a very nostalgic podcast.
Okay.
And it, in this way, relates to our podcast because it's very obsessed with, like, the 80s into 90s era.
Oh.
So it is 2 dudes on the East Coast, Jay and Matt, talking about a lot of things from their childhood that they are, like, obsessed with, but also, like, Halloween novelties, like, now.
This sounds right up. Did they make this just for you?
I know. I love it. Because I want to hear 2 men talk in depth about buying pumpkin spice candles. I really do. And go on and on about, like, old commercials and Kool-Aid flavors they don't make anymore. And if you were a child going up to an ice cream truck, what ice cream would you buy?
Oh, God, that brings me right back.
It's such, like, it makes me be like, can I trick you into being my friend so that we can hang out and drive around and look for limited edition boxes of Count Chocula? Like, is that something we can do together? I didn't really listen to, I haven't listened to all of them. I've been listening to a lot lately. I kind of skipped over the Christmas episodes because I'm just not really into that. Sure. But if you like old, kitschy, holiday, childhood shit, which I'm completely obsessed with, and then also like current holiday novelty items. This is a podcast for you. It's one of those things that makes me go like, I can't believe there are other people that would want to listen to this. And that makes me happy. What it kind of makes me think of is in the 2nd season of Stranger Things, there is a part where 11 goes to Chicago.
Yes.
And it's supposed to be the 80s.
That is the weirdest part about that season.
And I'm watching that as someone who was a child by Chicago in the 80s and went, that is not Chicago. How do I know that? Because the ground is not littered with the styrofoam cases Big Macs used to come in. Which I used to hop on, and they made a really great sound when they popped, and they were everywhere, and that is why McDonald's no longer uses that very irresponsible packaging.
It's fascinating.
So if you were the type of person that would bother you, you'll love this podcast because it's so stuck on these tiny, nostalgic details, and I'm all like, just shoot that right into my veins.
Amazing.
There's a lot of junk food talk, but I do want to include a caveat that there's a lot of diet talk.
Okay.
And that's my least favorite thing about the podcast. So I just want to throw that out there that there's some toxic diet culture. For people who are, like, reviewing junk food,
interesting.
Like, don't take one bite of something and throw the rest of it away. No. Just stick to your diet. No, you're reviewing junk food. Eat it. We have a drawer for snacks here.
We fully support eating all the snacks.
Whatever. There's some diet stuff. I don't love that. But in general, big fan of the podcast. One of the hosts runs a blog called Dinosaur Dracula. That's Matt. And goddamn, it's not just the best name you eve ever heard. Dinosaur Dracula.
That is the best name.
I know.
So I also have a podcast to recommend because I've been enjoying it a lot lately. So I've been listening to this podcast for a while because I kind of wanted to be sure before I recommended it that there wasn't anything problematic in it. But so far I've been pleased. And that is, it's an Alex Jones review podcast. Not review necessarily. I recommended the Behind the Bastards podcast because of their Alex Jones episodes, and then I've subsequently been listening to it obsessively. I love that podcast. But they had these guys on the show, like, as an update episode, because they do a podcast dedicated to basically fact-checking Alex Jones. And they were on the Behind the Bastards podcast, and the episode was really funny, and it got me to subscribe to their podcast, which is called Knowledge Fight. And first of all, the first thing I want to say about these guys is I don't know how they do it. They put out 3 episodes a week.
Oh my God.
Each episode is over an hour long. They do like exhaustive research because what they do is
Samantha, quit your job. We're going to do 3 episodes a week.
I could not do it. So they switch back and forth between old episodes. So right now they're going through 2009 and then current present day episodes. And sometimes then they do what they call Wacky Wednesday, which is like they find weird people that are Alex Jones adjacent on the internet to listen to like their shows and laugh at them and fact check them. And they systematically go through like everything he says, because everything he says is a lie and ridiculous and racist and horrible and anti-Semitic and whatever. And then
he's like the absolute worst.
Like painstakingly, meticulously fact check everything and tell you why it's wrong. And
that's such a burden because it's everything.
Yeah,
it's like you have to go find a source to prove the Earth isn't flat. You know what I mean? Just like
I will say they will skip over some things that are like so obviously wrong. But so like he'll make claims about current events that are just flat out lies, flat out wrong. Sometimes he'll take like a kernel of truth and just wildly misrepresent it. And they'll go through and find out like this is why it's wrong. And he's also just wacky, so then there's a lot to laugh about, and they'll point out things that he's doing that's harmful to people, and it's just really good.
So much of it is harmful.
And it seems like the hosts, this is something they weirdly enjoy to do. So I don't know that they consider it I don't know that they consider it a burden. I will say I have not listened to their backlog because it gets to be a little bit much. It's a lot of Alex Jones, but they're super funny guys. And I don't know that they're comedians. I think maybe they have done a little bit of stand-up comedy. It seems like they've talked a little bit about their past, and it seems like they have done lots of things. But they're hilarious. They will do these things where they'll drop like out-of-context quotes from Alex Jones, and they're fucking hilarious. The only downside is I kind of have to be careful where I'm listening to it because they will play a lot of clips.
Oh, yeah.
And so it will sound, if you accidentally press play on your phone, on your podcast app at the wrong
Everybody's
time.
going to go, Samantha listens to Alex Jones.
Yes, it's just Alex Jones. And it's like, no, I'm really not.
I've totally had this happen on the bus where like your headphones get unplugged from your phone, and so your phone just starts playing like out loud, and then everybody on the bus is like, oh, that woman over there is listening to Total Eclipse of the Heart, which I am, I wish I am. But I would hate that. That's embarrassing enough.
But like, for it to be Alex Jones.
Be Alex Jones, and you have to be like, no, I'm listening to it to prove how wrong it is. No one's gonna believe you.
So it's also fun to kind of keep up with what's going on with him because he has suffered some legal losses that are very satisfying as of late. And so they will talk about that, and I don't know, I'm blown away by the amount of research they do. They're very well spoken. They're funny. I think they're doing a service to everyone. I think it's live now, but they have put together like a Alex Jones wiki that details a lot of his claims and why they're wrong. So like if you have a relative or something who listens to Alex Jones and subscribes to these crazy conspiracy theories, you could potentially send them to the wiki page about...
That is such a great community resource that we all need.
Yeah, so I really think they're doing God's work, and I really enjoy the podcast.
Don't you mean Satan's work?
Yes.
Depends how you look at it, I guess.
Yes, I guess it does. There was one other thing I was going to say that I can't... But now it slipped my mind. Oh,
but I keep interrupting you.
Speaking of accidentally playing your podcast at the wrong podcast at the wrong time, I came this close at my work. So my office is very quiet. There's a lot of people that aren't in their office very often. They're out in the field. The people who are there tend to really focus on their work. So it's very quiet. And I will often listen to podcasts when I'm doing more mindless tasks. And I was listening to the Behind the Bastards podcast. Their recent episodes were about the Ku Klux Klan. And I don't remember the context. I apologize. But they said something along the lines of, yeah, it was a fucking thing. Like, it was about fucking. Like, whatever they were talking about was about fucking. And I, instead of hitting pause on my phone and taking my headphones out of my ears, I pulled the headphones out of the phone. And I heard a little blip, like, of sound, like it was just about to play, but then it paused itself, and I was like, oh my god, that could have been so bad, because it was up real loud.
Here's Samantha's quiet office, and then all of a sudden, it was a fucking thing.
Coming from my cubicle.
What? Huh?
What was that?
What's Samantha doing over there?
Yeah, not good. I also...
Not watching pornos while at work.
So, you gotta be careful with some of these podcasts. Which ones you listen to
Not
at work?
safe for work.
Yeah, not safe for not having your headphones in.
Yeah.
I think they're doing a service to the world, and like I said, it's not something
to
I
this
could.
great nation.
It's not something I could binge, so I haven't listened to a lot of their back episodes, but I have been listening to each one that comes out each week and thoroughly enjoying it.
Cool.
So.
I also, as an update to a previous recommendation, I got some new Witch Baby body butter in the scent Moon Lips. I'm not crazy about that name, but I wanted to make Samantha smell it because it smells.
I see it's purple.
To me, I would say this smells like a Lucky Charms marshmallow.
Ooh,
isn't it so good?
Yeah, I smell some like vanilla. That is so good.
Max said it smelled like the Trader Joe's cookie butter.
Yeah, I'm getting cookie butter from this. I'm gonna put a little on my hands.
Do it.
The air in Minnesota right now is so dry.
Everything on me is... I'm just going to bathe in this glass jar somehow.
I think I might order some body butter this evening.
You should. Oh, you should. The Valentine's Day products are out now.
You know what I need?
Do they pay us?
To order?
No.
I forgot.
Should they? Yes.
I was going to order some Valentine's polar water.
Oh, yeah. They have the black heart one?
Yeah, the black and red heart ones. You can order polar water on this website called Box or Boxed. I think it's Boxed. DED. And it's like a bulk food place, and you can only get the 1 liter bottles, unfortunately, but you can order polar water. So I want to get the winter limited editions because I haven't been able to find them, and I think they're going to be gone soon. So I was going to get a case of they're $12 each, I think, for like the big case, and you have to it's like a $20 minimum order. So I was going to get the Valentine ones and the winter ones. Because I think that would... And it's like the mythical creatures polar water where you don't know what the flavors are.
Oh.
Because I was trying to find out what flavors the Valentine's ones are. And
we should drink them on the show.
If it's black licorice, I swear to God, I'm going to riot. I don't want black licorice polar water.
All right. Let's riot if that happens. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Liz is on board. So I might order some of that this week, too.
Sounds great. Sounds lovely. Oh, thanks, everyone. I hope you're warm. I hope you're well. I hope you're happy and healthy.
I hope you're warm. We won't be warm here, but...
I hope you're warmer than us. And you should follow us on social media.
Facebook.
Perhaps it's you.
Instagram and Twitter.
You should email us. A couple people have sent their paranormal stories. That is awesome.
Much appreciated.
We have not read them yet. We're going to read them when we do a listener story show. So I haven't responded to your emails yet. Other people, paranormal stories, we need them.
Send them our way.
Did you get bit by a vampire? Did you see a mummy that was walking around? Did you see...
I want to hear about that.
Did you see a ghost?
Yeah, send us those stories. Perhaps it's you podcast at gmail.com.
Yes.
We have new Patreon tiers. Go to patreon.com/perhaps it's you to see them.
It includes coloring pages for $5.
And an extra special surprise for $10 every quarter. They are the mystery solver level. That's $1 or less. They are the super mystery solver level, $5 to $10, $5 to $9, I guess. And then the super duper mystery solver level.
What?
Which is $10 more.
And you might think nobody would do that. Some suckers
People
already have.
Been doing
so you're wrong.
Yeah. I think... Yeah, actually
it'll already be out.
Our January episode will be out by the time you hear this.
Hotel Hell. Hotel Hell. Oh my God.
If you want to hear us sing that song and also talk about Gordon Ramsay in a Speedo, you can tune into that. You can get that for the $1 at the $1
That
level.
hotel isn't haunted, but it is haunted by a bad Cher rendition. So
We'll forever be haunted by that. Next month we are doing Ghost Adventures, and we have friend of the pod Cara on the show.
yeah, it's really fun.
to
We already
talk about
recorded
with
it.
us.
It's
So-
ready.
And then I don't know if we've chosen something for March yet.
Yeah, for like not even a second, I was like, oh, maybe we should do the Bundy tapes, and then I was like, no, that's depressing as hell, Liz. That's the worst idea you ever had.
I'm also Ted Bundy'd out, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
Should I make Liz watch Balto? Just kidding.
Oh, that's
I wasn't
okay.
totally serious about that, but you can buy Balto on Amazon, so if you're interested, we could do
We
that
could
one.
do Balto.
Make Liz
If
watch
anybody
it.
wants that to happen, let us know.
We also may or may not have a Pupcast minisode coming out.
Yeah, that's a mystery.
Yeah, that's a rumor I heard. Anyway,
That's a mystery whether that'll happen. Do. You should treat yourself to a champagne float or some French toast sticks or a nice wrap in
Yeah.
a shawl.
yeah, buy yourself a luxurious robe
Yeah.
and solve some mysteries, bitches.
Absolutely. Do that most of all. Bye.
Bye.